Hi guys, today I'm going to review the Lenovo IdeaPad Pro 5 Gen 8 with the AMD Ryzen 7000 series CPU. This is Lenovo's 8th generation of the IdeaPad Pro lineup. The laptops from the lineup are available in two sizes, 14-inch and 16-inch. The variant that I purchased and that I'm going to review today is the 14-inch. Both sizes share a lot of similarities though, and a lot of the things that I'm going to say in the video are going to apply for the 16-inch variant as well. Apart from the screen sizes, both variants differ in the fact that the 16-inch comes with an optional dedicated NVIDIA RTX 3050 or 4050 GPU and a dedicated charge port. If you order directly from Lenovo and play with the Lenovo configurator, there is only a €30 difference between the two variants if you opt for the same CPU, RAM and the integrated Radeon GPU configuration. At least that's the case on the Lenovo Germany website. Without further ado, let's start with the review. The first thing that I want to mention is the build quality. Coming from a MacBook Pro 16-inch from 2019, I'm really surprised by the build quality of this laptop. It's very well built and sturdy, not only for the price, but compared to more expensive laptops as well. I would say that for the average user, it will feel on par with the new MacBooks in terms of overall build quality and feel. Of course, some might argue that it costs as much as a MacBook, but I will come to the pricing in a bit. The IdeaPad Pro 5 Gen 8 is mostly made of aluminum and it features magnets around the display which contribute to a very nice opening and closing feel of the lid. I wouldn't say that there is any noticeable chassis flex, at least for the 14-inch variant. While I don't have the 16-inch variant of this generation to test the build quality, I've purchased two Lenovo IdeaPad Pro 5 from the 6th generation for both my sister and my father. The 6th generation had a bit of chassis flex due to its bigger size, but it was definitely not that bad. The design of this laptop is not my favorite, if I have to be honest, especially the extra bump on the top of the display for the camera and microphone array. The entire microphone and camera array seems excessively large for me. I'm also not a fan of the Lenovo logos on the outside and inside. At least the laptop stays on its dedicated rubber feet when it's open and it doesn't move around on the table. Some other new modern laptops use the display to lift the entire body of the laptop up so it can get a better cooling. This is not the case with the IdeaPad Pro 5. Lenovo has been using this design for a while now for the IdeaPad Pro 5 lineup, and I think that it needs a little update, especially for the camera and microphone array. Next, I want to talk about the display of the Lenovo IdeaPad Pro 5. On paper, the display looks awesome. In the real world though, at least for me, there are some issues with it. Let's first start with the good parts. It's a 14-inch 16:10 aspect ratio, 2880 by 1800 IPS display. It is supposed to do 400 nits of peak brightness. While I don't have the hardware to test the real world brightness of this panel, the display seems bright enough for me. It might get difficult to use it, however, if you're in a sunny room or office. The matte surface definitely doesn't help with the brightness in this situation, but at least it keeps the reflections away. In addition to that, the refresh rate of the display is 120Hz, which makes it very smooth. Unfortunately, the display doesn't support variable refresh rate, which does hurt the battery life a bit. The 16-inch variant also has a 120Hz refresh rate and the resolution of its panel is 2560 by 1600. It has a lower peak brightness though, and it's rated at 350 nits. Now let's come to the bad part of the display, the resolution. The extra pixels contribute to a better picture quality in some scenarios, but I would say that they are really unnecessary. If you leave the display scaling at 100% in Windows, everything is really small and unusable. The recommendation from Windows is for 200% scaling, which leads to everything being too big. The option that works best for me is 150% scaling. However, I would have been much happier if the panel was 1920 by 1200 and had again 120Hz refresh rate. I'm saying 1920 by 1200 and not 1920 by 1080, which is full HD, because I would like to keep the 16:10 aspect ratio. The lower resolution would have eliminated the need for scaling and would have helped with the battery life. In addition to that, some casual gaming would have been much easier because you wouldn't have to lower the resolution and have weird scaling issues if the panel was simply 1920 by 1200. Some users might prefer the extra sharpness of this panel, but I would take the lower resolution every time if I had this option. We now come to the star of the show and the main reason I bought this laptop, the AMD Ryzen 7000 series CPU. I have to make it clear though, not every mobile Ryzen 7000 CPU is made on the 4nm Zen 4 architecture, but both the Ryzen 5 and the Ryzen 7 7000 series chips offered by Lenovo in this model are. And they are simply fantastic. The Ryzen 7 is obviously better not only because it has 2 extra cores and 4 extra threads and a bit more cache, but it also has 4 extra GPU cores. If you're planning to buy this laptop, I would definitely recommend going for the Ryzen 7 CPU. From what I saw in hardware info, the CPU is configured to run in its full 55 watt mode. This results in a Cinebench R23 score of around 15,900 points. The performance on battery is also not that bad and it's a bit over 14,000 points. For reference, I have a desktop PC with Ryzen 7 5800X and it gets almost the same result while consuming around 110 to 120 watts. The performance per watt of the Ryzen 7000 CPUs is simply fantastic. The IdeaPad Pro 5 also comes with 16GB or 32GB DDR5 memory clocked at 6400 MHz. This is a decent memory clock and is partly what helps with the integrated GPU performance and the good CPU performance. Unfortunately, the memory is soldered to the motherboard, so pick wisely when you buy this laptop. If you're planning to use it for work, make sure to get the 32GB variant if your workflow requires more memory. With the integrated graphics, you lose 2 gigs of memory, so effectively you have 14 gigs or 30 gigs of RAM available for applications. However, soldering the memory to the board is the reason why it is clocked so high. Also, Lenovo charges only €150 to upgrade from 16GB to 32GB, which is not that bad, I think. Regarding the GPU performance, I plan on making another video in which I will test the GPU performance of the Radeon 780M. What I can tell you right now is that the integrated GPU is good enough for esports games like Dota 2, Overwatch, Valorant, and Fortnite. CSGO is also playable, but I had some issues with frame drops. I assume that this is because of the bad Radeon support for DirectX 9. Of course, you have to lower the resolution to somewhere around 1920 by 1200 if you want to do some gaming on this laptop. This doesn't always result in the best picture quality because of the not ideal scaling, but hey, I will take it. Some older AAA titles like The Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5 are also running fine on the laptop. As I said, stay tuned for a follow-up video. What is not so great about the performance of the laptop is the Western Digital SN740 SSD. It comes in two variants, 512GB and 1TB. It is an NVMe PCIe Gen 4 SSD, but it lacks DRAM cache and the performance is not always great. It is absolutely fine, however, for daily tasks. Another great part about this laptop so far is the cooling. Even under full CPU load, I didn't see temperatures in hardware info above 80 degrees Celsius. After 1 hour of playing Dota 2, I saw average temperatures of 55 degrees. The laptop didn't get hot to the touch either. The ambient temperature for my test was 23 degrees Celsius. The cooling is good thanks to the two fans that this laptop has. The fan noise under load is also not bad. However, Lenovo really did screw up the fan curve of the IdeaPad Pro 5. The fans are always running, they never get switched off, even if the CPU is at something like 35 degrees and idling. The fan curve is also different for battery power and AC power. When the laptop is plugged in, the fans run at higher RPM and even on idle, one can definitely hear them. On battery power, the fan curve is not as aggressive, and even though the fans still run all the time, the noise is not that annoying. If you Google about the fans running all the time, you'll find complaints from other Lenovo users as well, not only for this model lineup but also another Lenovo models. It turns out that Lenovo screwed up the fan curve with some BIOS update at some point. I updated my BIOS to the latest possible version, but the fan curve is still bad. Unfortunately, there is also no easy option in the BIOS to set the fan curve, and you have to download and use third-party software in Windows for that. Next, I want to talk about the port selection on the IdeaPad Pro 5. I think it's simply great. On the right side, you have two USB-A 3.2 Gen 1 ports, a card reader, and a 3.5mm combo audio and microphone jack. On the left side, you have an HDMI 2.1 port and two USB-C ports. The HDMI port supports display output up to 4K 60Hz. The first USB-C port is USB 4.0. The second one is a USB-C 3.2 Gen 1 port. You can charge the laptop through both USB-C ports and both of them can work as a display port. I tested the ports with both a 1440p 144Hz monitor and a 4K 60Hz monitor. I had no issues with either of them. In total, you can have 3 external 4K 60Hz displays, which is wild for a 14-inch laptop with integrated graphics. Overall, I think that the port selection is great. Next, I want to move to the peripherals. The keyboard of the laptop is okay. I have no complaints about the layout or the keys. I believe it's the same keyboard as in previous generations of this lineup. Some reviewers find the keyboard a bit mushy, but I'm fine with it. The touchpad on the IdeaPad Pro 5, however, is awful. I don't know how to put it in a better words, but I think it's simply garbage. Mostly because of the drivers, but it probably also has something to do with the actual hardware itself. Coming from a MacBook, I have a difficult time getting used to this touchpad. The Apple touchpads allow you to click on the touchpad and get haptic feedback every time you do that. Also, the Apple touchpads don't physically move when you click on them. The Lenovo touchpad, on the other hand, supports both physical clicks and a tap to click. On physical clicks, the bottom part of the touchpad moves. The problem that I have with this touchpad is that the driver is not great at differentiating finger movements and taps to clicks. Sometimes I just move my finger on the touchpad in order to move the cursor and the driver recognizes clicks. Also, sometimes when I want to press on the touchpad in order to click, the driver recognizes the initial contact of my finger as a click and then the pressing as another click. This results basically in 2 clicks being registered. It is also very annoying to select text with this touchpad or do a right click. It does support different gestures though, but I find this touchpad to be very difficult to use. If you're coming from another laptop with a similar touchpad behavior, you might not dislike it that much. But if you're coming from a laptop with a great touchpad, then you'll definitely hate it. The speakers are okay at best. The IdeaPad Pro 5 has 2-watt speakers. You have to activate the Dolby Atmos software after installing the audio drivers in order to get the best out of them. They are not especially loud and the audio quality is not great, but you can live with them. The camera is 1080p and also decent. It has a mechanical privacy cover. In addition to that, it is also infrared and features a time of flight sensor. This means that it supports Windows Hello. I find Windows Hello to be a bit slow and I think that it's faster to write your Windows password or PIN in some scenarios, but it's a nice option to have it. There is no fingerprint sensor for this laptop. One remark that I have to make is that if you use a privacy cover, Windows Hello doesn't work, which can be quite annoying if you forget that you use the cover for the camera. The laptop features a dual microphone array and the quality is decent. Finally, I want to talk about the charger. It is a 100-watt unit. The problem is that it's a big old school charging brick. The power cord that goes to the outlet is not integrated to the brick and can be user replaced. The USB-C part of the brick, however, goes directly into the brick and the cable is not replaceable, which is kind of a bummer. One might wonder why you need a 100-watt charger for a laptop with an efficient CPU and integrated graphics. But there is a very good reason for that. Fast charging. Lenovo calls their fast charging Rapid Charge Express. I haven't tested it in more detail, but it really seems like the battery is charging fast. I want to move next to the battery and the battery life. The battery life of the Lenovo IdeaPad Pro 5 is definitely a weak point. The battery itself is a 4-cell 75 watt-hours, which on paper doesn't sound that bad. According to the specs that I can find on the Lenovo website, the 16-inch variant comes with the same battery, so its battery life will probably be even worse. During normal internet browsing and watching YouTube, the battery life estimate in Windows shows about 8 hours of possible usage. However, if you start doing something more demanding, the battery percentage drops rapidly. Finally, I want to move to the pricing. I bought my config with Ryzen 7 7840HS, 16GB of RAM and 512GB SSD for €683. I picked the option for no operating system in the configurator because I think you can save money by doing that and installing your own fresh copy of Windows. During my order process in the beginning of August 2023, there was a sale on the Lenovo Germany website. In addition to that, there were some newsletter vouchers available. That's how I came up to this price, and this is the exact reason why I ordered this laptop. At the time of recording of this video in early September 2023, the price on the Lenovo website for this exact model is €859. At this price, I still think that the laptop is worth buying, but it's definitely not as a sweet deal as the one that I had. For €859, you might find a base config MacBook Air 13-inch with the M1 CPU. Sure, it will only have 8GB of RAM and 256GB SSD, but it will have better portability, battery life, touchpad and speakers. And in my opinion, a better operating system. If you're going to use the laptop only for browsing Netflix and checking emails, the MacBook Air will be good enough for a long time. So would I recommend the 8th generation of the Lenovo IdeaPad Pro 5 and its 14-inch variant? Yes, especially if you can get a deal on it. Be aware of the touchpad though, and if you can use a mouse, then the touchpad is definitely not a deal breaker. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the laptop and this video. Also, if you happen to purchase one yourself already, please share your experience with it. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.